What's good, y'all? It's your boy Micah J, and I'm back again with another video talking about wrestling. Now, for someone like me who's been a lifelong lover of professional wrestling, you're always going to feel some type of way or have a certain opinion about a certain superstar. The ones that you consider to be the greatest ever, the ones that you grew up loving as a kid, and then there are the ones that just make you go, meh. Which is why today I'll be counting down of who I think are the most overrated wrestlers of all time. Now, just to be clear, overrated does not mean that the wrestler is particularly terrible, but just the ones that you're not really too fond of or don't think are as special as people make him out to be. Before I start this list, here are some honorable mentions that I've listed. The Young Bucks, Mercedes Moné, Kevin Nash, Alberto Del Rio, The Ultimate Warrior, Jeff Jarrett, and Ronda Rousey. Kicking off this list, The Miz. The Miz, huh? More like the mid. Now, I know I'm going to receive a ton of flack for putting The Miz on the list because I know how much the internet wrestling community adores him. Now, before I get to why I think he's overrated, I'll give him his flowers. I give him his props for, being a long-time loyal worker for WWE, considering the fact that he's a 20-year veteran. He's capable of putting on solid matches when he's motivated, and he's proven himself to be a pretty damn great talker on the mic. But the fact that people keep saying that he's underrated and deserves more is just complete asinine to me. Like, look at his accomplishments. He's a former two-time WWE champion. He's main evented WrestleMania, and he's widely regarded as one of the greatest intercontinental champions of all time. But yet people say he's underrated. It's like, get the fuck out of here with that narrative. In my humble opinion, Miz never had any business being WWE champion, let alone ever being in the main event of WrestleMania. The fact that he's main evented WrestleMania over so many deserving wrestlers like Dean Ambrose, Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, CM Punk, and even Ric Flair, it's something I can never wrap around my head. I just find that to be so gross. Honestly, the mid-card is where it's at for him. Even with all his expertise, he just never screamed main event material to me. Like what I said, I give the guy his flowers for, what he's done in his career, which has been pretty good for the most part. But for those who keep saying that he should have gotten more of a shot at the main event scene are dead wrong. Next, I have Nikki and Brie Bella, aka the Bella Twins. Oh god, the fucking Bella Twins. I always just saw them as like the Kardashians of WWE because if it wasn't for who they were married or who they were dating, they wouldn't be as big as they are. Sure, yeah, they may have had the look, but they lacked the skills and the talent. But yet WWE had the audacity of putting them in like huge major storylines and give them championship runs over so many female wrestlers that were way more talented than they were. On top of that, the fact that the goddamn Bella Twins are in the WWE Hall of Fame is just absolutely ridiculous to me. Like, the fact that they're inducted over so many deserving icons of the business really just goes to show how much of a joke the WWE Hall of Fame is. Even with all the things that the Bella Twins have accomplished in their careers, I will never see them in the same breath as some of the all-time greatest female wrestlers like Trish Stratus or Lita. Sure, people think they're special, but they're not special to me. Next wrestler on the list, Bill Goldberg. I mean, come on, do I have to explain this one? It's Goldberg. Enough said. Next wrestler on the list, Brock Lesnar. The 2010s was undeniably the worst decade for WWE from a creative standpoint. And one of the things that wrestling fans like myself hated about that particular decade was the one man who stood as the textbook example of that, which would be none other than the Beast Incarnate himself, or let me just do my Paul Heyman impression really quick. Brock Lesnar. Now, I will give credit where credit is due before I explain why I think Brock Lesnar is overrated. He's one of the biggest attractions the WWE have ever had. He's a fantastic seller. He's a fantastic in-ring worker as a combat fighter. He's very believable when it comes to being booked as like a real-life video game character come to life as like the final boss. And he can also be very charismatic. Lesnar was amazing in his initial run with WWE in the Ruthless Aggression era from 2002 to 2004 because he had like this raw power and hunger to him that it was very easy to see why people gravitated to the guy. However, since his return in 2012, he went from being the next big thing to the Beast Incarnate to eventually becoming the next big pain in my ass. Even with all the major upsides and the amazing quality matches that Lesnar has produced since his return in 2012 with the likes of John Cena, Roman Reigns, CM Punk, AJ Styles, and Daniel Bryan, Brock Lesnar's presence had been a major detriment to the quality of the WWE's product throughout the past decade. From the way how the company utilized him to squander the momentum of young talents, to giving him countless accomplishments that he doesn't truly deserve, and my biggest gripe of all, his part-time schedule. Although I can respect the fact that Lesnar has been publicly outspoken that he treats wrestling like it's a job and that he's just here for the money. I can respect that. However, that's not the thing that irks me about him. The thing that irks me about him is the fact that it doesn't look like he really gives a shit. So it's like, if he doesn't give a shit, why should I give a shit? Well, Lesnar can put on great matches when he's motivated, but overall, I just think he's been so one-dimensional and has been one of the most consistently boring wrestlers of all of WWE for like the past 12 years. Brock Lesnar hasn't been seen since SummerSlam of last year, and honestly, if that's the last time we ever see him in a WWE ring ever again, then I say good. The immortal Hulk Hogan. The day has finally come where I can absolutely tear Hulk Hogan to shreds because I can't stand this incompetent asswipe. Now, I am fully aware that Hulk Hogan is one of the most recognized and one of the most influential wrestlers in the history of the industry. Back in the 80s, this man was everywhere. He was adored by women and children. Men wanted to be him. He represented everything that Vince McMahon wanted in a top star. He had the look, he had the physique, the 24-inch pythons, he had the mic skills, the charisma. He was a massive draw and had the mainstream appeal considering the fact that he was one of the wrestlers who helped put WWE in the map by ushering in one of the most successful and iconic boom periods in the history of the industry, best known as the Golden Era, along with other iconic wrestlers such as Andre the Giant, Macho Man Randy Savage, Rowdy Roddy Piper, and millionaire Ted DiBiase. However, even with all the things that Hogan contributed to the industry, even with all of his accolades, the guy was not a good in-ring performer as he literally had the wrestling abilities of a pregnant lady. And if we're just talking about Hulk Hogan the person, Terry Bollea, the man is an objectionable cunt. Bret Hart was right when he called him a phony piece of shit because when it comes to looking at Hogan's history of being a backstage politician who would always abuse his power of always keeping himself on top at any cost and refusing to lose to various wrestlers by saying, "That doesn't work for me, brother," will prove that that statement is 100% accurate. Hulk Hogan to me is the textbook example of why people should be very cautious of who they idolize or who they look up to. Because for the past decade, this man has been tainting his legacy as he's been constantly making an ass out of himself, from being an egomaniac to being a pathetic liar, and the fact that he is a racist son of a bitch. Honestly, I could spend an entire video completely just ragging on Hulk Hogan, but honestly, I'm not even going to bother. Well, nobody, including myself, can ever take away what he's contributed to the business, but other than that, fuck Hulk Hogan. And my pick for the most overrated wrestler of all time is the original tribal chief, Roman Reigns. Now, this is the part where I am going to get absolutely obliterated and torn to shreds in the comments, because I can already tell people are going to be yelling at me by saying, "What are you talking about? How dare you besmirch the tribal chief? You better acknowledge him." Look, I will give the guy his props. I acknowledge the fact that he is undeniably one of the biggest stars, if not the biggest star in wrestling right now. Ever since turning heel back in 2020, he has been on a run of a lifetime by doing the greatest work of his career with the tribal chief gimmick, and the Bloodline storyline has been some of the greatest storytelling in the history of WWE. Although despite the fact that it's been 4 years in his run, people are like now immediately like putting him in the GOAT conversation, like putting him top 20, top 10, top 5, let alone calling him like the greatest wrestler of all time. Like, that to me is a humongous stretch. Like, does that not scream recency bias to anybody? Like, come on, it's been 4 years in his run. And yeah, even before that, he's accomplished a lot in his career. However, looking at the harsh realities, looking back on his entire career in WWE, half of his accomplishments didn't feel like he truly earned or deserved them because they have been the epitome of quantity, not quality. Now, I know how much we all want to forget how disastrous Roman Reigns' initial babyface push was. However, even with all of that, we can't ignore the fact that his initial push caused irreparable damage to WWE's programming, as it led to so many terrible years creative-wise. Roman's massive babyface push really wasn't profitable because of the fact that it came at the expense of sacrificing or sidelining so many wrestlers who were objectively way more popular than he was, including the likes of Daniel Bryan and Dean Ambrose. I mean, come on, people are really calling Roman Reigns the greatest wrestler of all time. It's like people are really going to convince me that he's better than the likes of Stone Cold Steve Austin, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, The Undertaker, The Rock, John Cena, Ric Flair. Yeah, no thank you. Look, as good as he is, he doesn't come close to any of them in my book. Even with all the countless accolades that Roman Reigns received, most of them didn't feel like he truly earned or deserved them because of the fact that they were spoon-fed to him. And I know people are going to be shouting, "What are you talking about? Roman didn't have anything handed to him. He had to work for everything he had to get in his career." Like, dude, think about it. He's main evented WrestleMania for a whopping 9 times. 9 pissing times. more than any other wrestler in the company, more than Shawn Michaels, more than Undertaker, more than John Cena, even more than Triple H. Like, how is anybody not convinced that he didn't have his accomplishments spoon-fed to him? In reality, he didn't even deserve to be in the main event until his heel turn, because that's when he truly felt like he was the guy. In hindsight, he didn't deserve any of the Mania main events he had during his babyface run, with the exception of his match with Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 31, considering the fact that it was all of the purpose of forcing the audience to accept him as the top guy, which we all know was a humongous failure because of how intensely forced his push was. Not to mention the fact that the ones he had from 32 against Triple H, 33 against Undertaker, and 34 against Brock Lesnar in their second encounter were all utterly atrocious matches. Even when Roman had massively improved with his infamous heel turn, WWE yet again made the same mistake during his initial babyface push. Treat everybody else like cannon fodder while treating Roman as like the golden child. And I never like it when it's all about one guy and everybody has to be beneath that one guy who's been treated as like the be-all end-all superstar of the entire business, because it just never sits right with me. Because a wrestling company should never be a one-man show. All of them should equally matter. The fact that it literally took about 5 or 6 years and a global pandemic for WWE to finally realize that turning him heel would be highly beneficial for Roman's career really just goes to show the pure incompetence and stupidity of the people working there, especially that incompetent old dumb fuck Vince McMahon. Now look, I know all those years of horrendous booking was no fault of Roman's, but that's the one thing that really prevents him from being in the GOAT conversation for me, because oh my god, those were some very dark times. I feel like if his booking was a lot better, or if they had just turned him heel sooner, I would see him in that conversation, but because of that, that's why I don't even put him like one of the all-time greats. Honestly, he wouldn't even crack top 30 for me, which I know I will get hate for saying that, but if I do, then so be it. I'm glad that Roman finally got his happy ending, but man, all those bad years really could have been prevented, because I really don't feel like it was worth all those terrible, 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 terrible years of wrestling.